Okay, Dr. Milliner.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special board meeting for the partnership. Today is January 25th, 2024. Just like to call our meeting to order. And I would like to turn the meeting over to Miss Amy right now.
Let me go ahead and do roll call.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. So Alicia Burns. Let me back up. Sharon Allen.
Yes.
Alicia Burns.
Here.
Dr. Douglas Craddock.
Present.
Gina Dunlap.
Present.
Jennifer Hancock.
Present.
Tammy Hawkins. Keith L. Jackson. Keith was on earlier, but Jessica Jackson. Darlene Johnson-Jones.
Here.
Dr. Gabriel Jones Jr. Dr. Mary Milliner.
Present.
Michael Nagel. Lyndon Pryor.
Here.
Christopher Romaine.
Present.
Christopher Romaine.
Present.
Oh, I thought I saw you and heard you. I got you. Desmond Smith. William Summers V.
Here.
Dr. Don Wade.
Present.
Gary Williams. Monique Quarterman, proxy for Secretary Jeff Noel or Secretary Jeff Noel. And Jeff O'Brien.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Is Miss Amy ready to report out?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Milliner. I know on Monday we were together and some questions arose as to what was presented to the board in June 2022 regarding Ms. Douglas's contract. And so I went back and pulled that information you have in what I've sent you or what we put together. The full package that was sent to the board for that meeting, which was, of course, the agenda, the financials, but relevant to this, you were presented with Laura Douglas's proposed terms and conditions, essentially her offer of what she proposed to do for the partnership, as well as her resume and some supplemental information. You all were not presented with a technical contract at that meeting. So it appears that, and again, remembering I wasn't there, the vote was to engage Ms. Douglas based on the offer that was presented. And then that was turned into the independent contractor agreement that I also had Rita send out to you. And those terms and conditions were incorporated into paragraph 1A as far as the duties. The rest of the contract was essentially, I mean, I don't mean to denigrate the contract this way, but it's essentially boilerplate contract language to indicate that Laura was going to be an independent contractor. So what we brought to you on Monday was a proposed change simply to make Laura an employee as opposed to an independent contractor for wage and hour purposes, keeping the financial obligation of the partnership the same. So I'm happy to take any of your questions about the comparison of the terms and conditions that were discussed in June 2022, as well as the contract that was entered into by former Chair James with Laura in July 5th, 2022, and then the edits that we brought to you on Monday, and then the comparison of those. Yes, Mr. Pryor.
Yeah, so just in an attempt to kind of expedite the time, is there, I did not receive or did not see the updated agreement based on the conversation that we had. There were at least a couple of items that we said we wanted to be revised for this contract on Monday. And all I'm seeing is the red line document as the most recent thing, which still reads exactly as it did that day. Was there an updated, based on the revisions requested, was there an updated document sent?
Not with that language, and I addressed that in the last paragraph of my memorandum, that this contract has to be agreed by both sides. The board can't unilaterally change the terms of the contract. What was presented was agreed to by Ms. Douglas. Any amendments have to be agreed. So if the board wants to prepare language and vote on language and present that to Ms. Douglas for approval, it can. But I am suggesting that we approve what was presented on Monday to deal with the wage and hour issue. And then since that was going to involve issues regarding the search, which is not going to happen later, I think that needs to be sorted out separately since there needs to be a meeting of the minds and there hasn't been one yet.
So Amy, this is what we have here. We just really, again, are trying to change Laura's status from a contract employee to a employee of the partnership.
Yes.
So like I said, man, I don't know. Can I make a motion to do that? What do I need to do here? I mean,
Well, I think procedurally, since this was postponed, we're here now to deal with that. The Finance Committee had already recommended the change that we presented on Monday. So I think since that was a Finance Committee recommendation, a recommendation of a standing committee does not need a second until unless there's more discussion, it's ready for a vote. I'm not sure if you're ready to vote, but I'll let Dr. Milliner run that. I'm happy to answer any further questions.
I mean, does anybody have any other discussion? I mean,
No, this is Jennifer. I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you, Amy, for providing the clarity that I think we need to take a vote today, and I'm prepared to vote on this matter.
Are there any more questions before I?
Looks like Gina's hand is up.
Yes, just, I guess I had a question about the motion that was passed on Monday. And if we can get clarification on what we, I believe, affirmatively voted from Monday and when we came back from executive session. Because
Are you talking about the motion at the end of the meeting on Monday?
Lyndon's motion.
Okay. All right. I have an update on that.
Well, I was just hoping to have it reread, just to reread because we didn't have it in writing and we don't have our minutes from the meeting, but
the significant matter is, remember that we are a public organization and we must follow the public meeting requirements under statute. Now, this is information that I intended and wanted to give all of you at the end of the meeting on Monday. But as I looked around the room and saw everyone's face, they seemed either tired or exasperated. I said, we can pass and I can explain it at the next meeting. Recall that because we are subject to open meetings laws, we must publish in advance for the public all action items that the board will be taking action on at each of our meetings. The matter regarding how the search was to be conducted, etc., was not listed on the agenda. The public had no notice that it would be considered So the vote taken is invalid. And in addition to that, if you look at the contract between the partnership and me, which was in existence at the time of the meeting on Monday, that contract delegated to me the authority to head the search. And you see the same language in the document that Amy has presented today. So there is no motion, no valid action from the meeting after closed session on Monday that we are to consider.
Anybody else have any comments or concerns at this time before we take a vote?
Well, I see Lyndon's
I
hand,
see Lyndon's hand up.
but so I
Yeah.
guess I'm just responding that Ms. Douglas did not answer my question, but I'll defer to Lyndon.
So one, to answer your question, Gina, I did send to Dr. Milliner and to Rita the language that was read in the motion that was passed by the board on Monday. I'm happy to share that with the group. At some point, I can't get to it right this second, but am happy to do that. But to the points that Laura made, one, I'd really like to be able to see, and I do not have time to do this here today, what exactly you're referring to in terms of what statute says and what's allowable, because under what you're saying, for us to even have new business on the agenda would almost be a waste of time, because that would mean that then new business could not be brought forward. So I don't understand why we ever have it on the agenda if it has to be published in advance. One. Two, what the motion was not to start the search, in earnest. It was to form a committee to do that. So that's second. And so there was no process to start a search. Given there, it was to form a committee of the board to be able to coordinate a search at such a time as when the items in there were fulfilled. Third, even based on the language that you were citing today, it does not actually give you the authority to run the search. What it does say explicitly is that you can select the search committee, is what that does. It does not give you the authority to actually head or lead the search. That is not the language that is in there. And so I want to make sure that that is absolutely clear in terms of what is being stated.
Let me offer this. I'm sorry.
Hold on,
I wasn't aware that you had another point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. And then I guess finally on that is with regard to that, we had at the time of the last meeting, part of the contention there was that the language in the contract provided needed to be changed. And so that is also a place in which all of this is in conflict. So we can decide if we want to take a vote on that. I don't know, given these recent statements, how comfortable I am in voting for this contract as currently proposed. I think then we probably need to go ahead and go forth with amending that and then proposing that for everybody to be on the same page and moving forward. But I just wanted to clarify based upon what is currently what was done last week and what is currently presented before us.
Let me offer this again. Regarding the new business items on the agenda, board members are free to bring up items that they want us to consider. And those items, after consideration, can be added to future agendas. It's not required that they be added to the meeting where they are brought up. So our process at the end of the meeting where we have open items and board members can bring up things, I don't think that there's anything inherently awry or wrong with the process that we are undertaking. Recall again, during our training, and this is something that Amy can clarify for us, we are under the open meeting statutes. Each time we have a meeting, we publish what the agenda is so that the public is on notice about the items that will be taken up at each of our meetings. The particular item regarding the process of the search was not listed on the agenda for Monday's meeting. Therefore, it's not possible for us to take any action on it until it is a declared and listed item on the agenda. Now, regarding the content of the contract, it is what it is. You have the language there in front of you. Selecting the search committee determines how the search will go. I have done 2 of these. Selecting the search committee determines how the search will go. I'm offering all of this information as clarification regarding what occurred on Monday, and so that everyone can be well informed when they act on the one item that's before the board today.
Okay.
And just quickly, Mr. Pryor, I have a copy of the email you sent to Dr. Milliner and Rita, and I just typed the motion that you emailed to them into the chat for everyone. I see Mike's hand up.
So I just want to state that in regards to the motions and being on the agendas, that's a departure that from what we've done in the past. I've regularly brought up motions and we passed them and it's never been an issue. So I'm a little confused by the recent statements.
Mm-hmm. The statute requirements are what they are. And recall, this was a matter that was gone over during the training that we had. This is a real routine matter. This is how all organizations that are subject to open meetings operate. The public has to know in advance what we will be doing. That's why we have to publish our agenda with the action items in advance of the meeting.
And I will speak for myself just as your board lawyer and the interaction of the motion on Monday with the contract that's in front of you, that's on the agenda for the special meeting today. The motion didn't end up, the motion that was voted on didn't end up having the discussion to, or you all didn't end up voting your request to amend the language in the contract. The motion that was presented was to create the committee and to get that process started after certain benchmarks were met. When we're talking about amending a contract that there's got to be consent on both sides, I wasn't comfortable putting that out here for you, both because of the questions about what was voted on, as well as the purpose of what the contract amendment that was brought to you all. I think when it's properly noticed, when we're in a regular meeting, if the board or a subcommittee of the board wants to talk about further amendments to the contract, I think that's a discussion that can be had in the context of how searches are going to move forward. But as far as what I, as a lawyer, was comfortable to put in my memo and propose to you all for vote today, it was to clarify what was voted on back in 2022, what was going to be in the contract as far as the scope. Did that match what was signed by Chairman James? And then what were the changes that you have presented to you from as approved by the Finance Committee? I know that was probably clear as mud. It's been a long day, but that's part of why I didn't just throw extra language out there for you all, because the motion that you all voted on, whether we debate of its validity, didn't instruct the language. Okay. For me to put in the contract to propose to Laura.
Okay, so if there's nothing further, then there was a recommendation from the Finance Committee to change the personnel classification.
I think there were a couple of, I think Mr.
There are
Price may have
hands
had another
up.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see your hand.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify, Amy, the motion that I believe was made by Dr. Wade to table this discussion, I thought included the revisions to the amended contract. And maybe I'm wrong, but we don't have the minutes there, but I just wanted to make sure.
The motion, and when that motion was made, from our perspective, it was because what we were being told was that the contracts weren't the same. To see that whether the contract that was signed in 2022 had different language. The motion to update that language was if that language was not in that contract, then it should then be updated. And I think seeing the signed contract, I see that the language is the same, but two, I recognize that that motion wasn't a legitimate motion based off of what Amy, as well as what Ms. Douglas has stated today. So I don't think that the motion in itself was actually an adequate motion to make.
Then anybody else? Sorry, because I can't see everybody on the screen.
Yeah, Gina's got another question.
Yes, just not to, like I say, belabor the point, but Amy, in your memo, you made it clear that in order to arrive at a mutual agreement via contract, that there has to be two parties in negotiation or in collaboration. So it's clear that Ms. Douglas is one of those parties, but I guess I'm wondering who has represented the partnership with regard to either initiating the contract amendment or who would be in a position to negotiate further if the board wanted to take such action.
I am glad you asked that question, because if this gets to a point to where there's not ready agreement on both sides, to me, the issue of, proposing that we change this for wage and hour purposes was really more for me as counsel for everyone, to protect everyone. But I cannot, as counsel for the organization, get involved in any dispute between, say, the board and Laura regarding what the language is. So if there is any, if this is not essentially agreed to by a majority of the board and Laura collaboratively, I cannot represent really either side at that point with regard to the negotiations, and we'll have to bring in additional counsel to deal with that.
Would any board officers be expected to participate in that? I'm not, so like outside of the level of attorneys, I mean, like just.
Oh, yes, I would say, and that's, something as the organization develops. I mean, this organization in the bylaws doesn't have, say, an executive committee constituted that would have that delegated to it. I would say that your board chair would have the authority to at least enter into tentative negotiations and see if there is anything that she would recommend on behalf of the partnership for the board to consider. Otherwise, it's more of a governance issue as far as whether we've got to have a majority of the board all together because no one else has been delegated that authority. Am I answering your question?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was answering it or not.
So outside of having an established governance committee and outside of having a functioning or a defined executive committee, that authority essentially falls on the board chair, is what you said.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Again, I can't see your hands right now, so.
I am not seeing any other hands, Dr. Milliner.
Okay, so at this time, there was a recommendation from the Finance Committee to change the personnel classification for Ms. Laura Douglas from contractor to employee. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, we need to do because this is a Zoom meeting, we need to do a roll call vote. I apologize for that.
Okay. Okay. I'll go down the list and I'll start with Miss Sharon Allen. Miss Allen, what do you vote?
Yes.
Alicia Burns,
Yes.
Dr. Douglas Craddock,
Yes.
Gina Dunlap,
Yes.
Jennifer Hancock,
Yes.
Tammy Hawkins. She's not with us anymore. Keith L. Jackson,
Yes.
Jessica Jackson, Darlene Johnson Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Gabriel Jones Jr.,
Yes.
Dr. Mary Milliner,
Yes.
Michael Nagel.
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Lyndon Pryor,
No.
Christopher Romaine,
Yes.
Desmond Smith, not here. William Summers,
Yes.
Dr. Don Wade,
Yes.
and Gary Williams, not here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 yeses and 1 no. And I want to make sure that's correct. That 1 no is Lyndon. Is that correct? Did I miss anybody else? Amy, were you tracking me too?
Yes, that's,
Okay, is
that
that
was
correct?
that was what I had.
Okay. Okay. 13 yeses and 1 no. The motion passes.
The motion passes. If there is no other objections, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you so very much, everyone. I appreciate your time for joining us for our special meeting.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. You all